The most brilliant scene in Daredevil Season 1 isn't an action-packed fight or shocking reveal. It's an honest conversation between Matt Murdock and a priest who shatters religious stereotypes. This scene wasn't just thrown in for drama. The writers clearly understood deep theological concepts that most people, even in churches, don't know. We're about to break it down.
Do you believe in the devil, Father?
You mean as a concept?
No. Do you believe he exists? In this world, among us?
You want the short answer or the long one?
Just the truth.
Well, guys, Father Lantom says Satan wasn't an individual being in the Old Testament, but was later reinterpreted as a single entity. Are you surprised by this?
Not really. I think that happens a lot. There's probably a lot of things that were at one point meaning to be an overall symbol of something that was kind of like narrowed down to mean one thing. I honestly, on top of my head right now, I can't think of anything example, but I know that there have been other examples of that going, oh, really? Yeah. At first it was just this general thing. And then it kind of like narrowed it down to mean this one thing to, as he said, get people into the church or propaganda.
Yeah, he implies that in the Old Testament there's more than one Satan, and then by the New Testament there's just one. And this actually has ramifications for the episode, so there's a reason we're talking about this. But first, fact check. Do you think he's right? Do you think what he's saying is true?
I think it really depends on how you, I don't want to say translate, but how you read the Bible. You know, like Drew said, there's a lot of people who miss it. There's a lot of people who read it and see it one way. Another person might read it and see it another way. And, you know, I don't think there's any wrong way to interpret the Bible unless you use it for evil purposes. I should point that out. But, you know, it's always go back to the turn the cheek parable where, you know, growing up, I was like, okay, somebody smacks me. I just got to let them keep smacking me. And then it was explained that by law back in the day, you could slap a slave with the back of your right hand. Well, if that slave turned his cheek, he's standing up for himself. He's not just saying, here, beat me, you know? So again, but there's still people today that believe that means to not be violent, which is totally great. You know, again, it's how you interpret it.
Yeah, both good interpretations, yeah. So this is interesting because the show is playing with the idea that Matt has this inner demon, right? An inner devil. And so when they bring this up, like they're also trying to paint Fisk as the devil himself, right? So you're wrestling with, are there two devils? Are there one? Well, what Father Lantom said is actually true. In the Old Testament, the word Satan is not a proper noun. It's not a name. It just means adversary. So there were many Satan figures in the Old Testament. And then by the New Testament, they just focused on this one figure, the devil. And that's how they're kind of trying to pitch Fisk. But you can kind of see, like, when you watch the show, well, is Matt going to win this inner battle with his devil inside? Or is there one devil in the show or two? I think that's kind of cool how they play with that.
Yeah, I like there's a second scene that he has with the priest where he kind of came in while the priest is at the end of the day and he's in the chapel and he's just kind of having his moment. I love when the priest, after he said, like, I visited somebody, I wanted to get inside of his head to see if I can do what I need to do and all that stuff. And the priest says, I think the question you need to be asking yourself is it that you don't want to kill him, but you feel you have to? Or is it you don't have to kill him, but you want to? That's the question you need to be asking. And I thought that was a great line. I mean, that sums him up perfectly. What is the choice you want to make? Do you want are you wanting to kill him or are you not wanting to but feel you have to? What is it?
Years later, I was in Rwanda trying to help local churches provide aid and sanctuary to refugees. I'd become close with the village elder, Gahiji. He and his family had the respect of everybody, Hutu and Tutsi alike. The militia liked to force Hutu villagers to murder their neighbors, but nobody would raise a hand against Gahiji. The commander wanted to meet this man. He went to Gahiji, talked with him in his hut for many hours. Then he dragged him out in front of his village and hacked him to pieces, along with his entire family. In that man who took Gahiji's life, I saw the devil.
So in the story that Father Lantom shares about witnessing true evil in this village in Rwanda, I thought, oh, looking at the timeline, they might actually have written this based on like a historical fiction. So there may be a real event, a world event that they based this off of. Do you guys know? Does anything come to mind?
I've seen a couple things about Rwanda, everything that went on there. It wouldn't surprise me that, this would be true or based on. Obviously, that priest wasn't at the real Rwanda, but I mean, the stories I hear from over the years of just awfulness, that could 100% have happened, definitely.
Yeah, in 1994, there was something called the Rwanda Massacre. And if I think back, I mean, when the show was made, 25 years before, that's a 20-year gap. So Father Lantom would have been like a young guy coming out of seminary during the Rwanda massacre. So I wondered if in the writers' minds, if they put him there because they witnessed true evil over there. I mean, there's crazy stories about like, it was kind of a religious fueled war and to some extent, and there were priests like killing people and things like that. And there have been a lot of psychology studies on it. So it's pretty fascinating. So I wondered, are they placing Father Lantom at that event or in Rwanda during that time? I don't know.
Oh, sounds like there.
Yeah, could be.
Few things are absolute, Matthew. Even Lucifer was once an angel. It's why judgment and vengeance are best left to God, especially when murder is not in your heart. So the question you have to ask yourself is, are you struggling with the fact that you don't want to kill this man, but have to? Or that you don't have to kill him, but want to? Like a muddied spring or a polluted fountain is the righteous man who gives way before the wicked. Proverbs 25 something, I never can remember.
Meaning righteous men have a duty to stand up to evil.
One interpretation. Another is that when the righteous succumb to sin, it is as harmful as if the public well were poisoned, because the darkness of such an act, of taking a life, will spread.
How does this scene challenge typical portrayals of religious leaders in TV and film?
I guess normally when you have a priest or anybody who has that kind of authority in the church, they seem to always be portrayed as very, I guess, inspiring to me. Like they've always got the right thing to say. They've always got an uplifting way to look at things. And here's the bright side of what we can do. And this guy is very blunt, like, I've seen dark stuff, and this is, he's a little bit more, to me, he's a little bit more real.
Like grounded
Than some of the portrayals that you see in TV and movies for the most part. The priest is always the happy guy over there. And this guy seems like, just a guy you could go really sit and have a conversation with. And he's not going to try to make everything sunshine and rainbows. He's going to let you know this is how the world could really be. And this is what I've experienced.
I would sit down for a latte with this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think between the three of us, I think I have the most Catholic experience. I went to both Church of Christ and Catholic churches growing up. I've spoken with a handful of priests, and it's interesting how they see things differently than we can. They would tell me stories about good and evil that they've witnessed. And they see, and I'm not coming up with an exact story, but I would see something as like, oh, that's bad. But then they can say something even worse out of it. But at the same point, I might see something that is, oh, that's nice, where they can actually point out, well, this is why it's amazing at the same time. So to speak with people who live it day and night, and that's basically all they focus on. They can't be married. You don't go home and have a conversation with your wife. How was your day? You go home and pray, or you go home and study, or, it's a lot of Catholic priests live that life, and they see things so much differently than we can.
Yeah, you kind of get this feel of old wisdom from him. But I always feel like in some movies, religious leaders are either portrayed as very black and white or strict, like rigid moralists. But It's interesting that they put Matt Murdock in the position of the black and white thinker. And the priest here, he's helping Matt break out of that. For instance, when Matt says that if he doesn't do something about Fisk, if he doesn't kill him, well, then he's responsible for the things that Fisk does. And that is when Father Lantom says one of those quotes of gold. He says,
There is a wide gulf between inaction and murder, Matthew. Another man's evil does not make you good. Men have used the atrocities of their enemies to justify their own throughout history.
but that kind of blew my mind. I'm like, oh, the priest is the gray thinker here. Like he understands nuance in a spiritual sense that you don't get from, a lot of other shows. So I'm looking at this episode like, dude, whoever they talked to consult for this episode or whoever wrote it, I mean, they knew about issues in the Hebrew regarding, Satan, the translation of that name. They were nuanced. I mean, they knew their theology. It is very impressive, especially for a show that's not exactly meant to be a religious show. Like the theology here is really pretty intriguing and engaging.
Yeah, I was actually wondering when I was watching this episode if they had somebody sit down with the writers who was, in that position. Maybe not, a priest, but someone who maybe studied it, or if they sit down with the writers to go over that stuff, like a consultant. Because, that whole wisdom that this guy has, and as Doug said, they can look at things in a way that we don't see it, and they can break that down. It's fascinating to listen to him talk and explain these things. So that's something I'd have to dig into to see, like, when they wrote this, how did they sit down and do this?
Yeah, I figured it had to be a consultant because that stuff about the Satan in Job, in the book of Job, not being the devil, that's a deep cut. Like the only reason I know that is because I took theology classes. So I figure, man, these guys did their homework, which is why I wondered if they meant to tie Father Lantom to that Rwanda issue, because they're building in history, they're building in faith. I mean, they did their homework and I was impressed. I think what you can see through this discussion is that the show is trying to get you to look at Fisk as the devil, but pair that with the story Father Lantom shares about the evil guy in Rwanda, right? I think that is meant to foreshadow something about Fisk, where he kind of gets to know his enemy and kind of talks to him, respects him, wines and dines him, and then kills him. Stuff like that. There's going to be a scene that I think is basically Fisk's version of living that out. So just tuck that away for a future episode. Earlier in the episode, Matt Murdock goes to the art gallery where he finds Fisk's girlfriend, kind of a way to get to know him and his world. And as he talks to her, she says that this red painting they're looking at represents both rage and love. I think this is kind of a clue as to what's going on with Matt. What do you guys see here?
I think it's kind of a clue that goes with both him and Fisk in a way. I mean, they love their city. They love their area. They both want what's best for it. At the same time, they got all this rage and hatred towards each other. I think that painting was perfect for both of them to represent who they were.
They're kind of a dichotomy.
Yes.
Yeah, this is still phase 1 of the Marvel experiment, or maybe right at phase 2. This is right after the first Avengers movie. And this is the time where they had really good written bad guys, if that's proper English. These bad guys that are doing crazy things, but you understand why. You can almost sympathize in a little bit. Now, yeah, they're going about it in an extreme way, but it's like, okay, I see, I understand what you're saying. They did that with Thanos, and they did that with Black Panther. There's many movies around that time where the antagonist was just well written, and at some point you're like, oh, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. And it's no different here.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that they used Vanessa to point out, same thing as Father Lantom, that Matt is stuck in this black and white thinking. Because he walks up to that painting, I'm pretty sure he said, like when he looked at it, he saw violence or something, or rage. And she says rage and love. Like she saw two emotions in this painting, and all he sees is death, which kind of foreshadows or mirrors his struggle, where he only sees killing Fisk as the solution. and he's not letting any room for a more hopeful solution. But like she looks at the same painting and she sees more than one solution. I think that's why that scene was there, to call attention to how he's kind of stuck in this tunnel vision. But maybe it's just me. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right. I think she's describing it. He does say, that sounds, I don't know what the exact words he used, but basically said, it sounds a little intense or, a little too dark. And then, she kind of said, but at the same time, it could be this. And it's like, well, okay. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good metaphor for where he's at.
Yeah, it makes her complex because I think we're supposed to take that she's kind of evil, like she knows what Fisk does and is okay with it. Like she's kind of a villainous, but yet she's the one that can see nuance, and he can't in that situation yet. So he's definitely portrayed as the younger, I don't know, Father Lantom's a mentor figure to him, and I thought he was doing a good job at it.
Okay, so while Matthew's out doing his thing, Karen, Foggy, and Ben are doing their own investigation, trying to link all of these crimes to Fisk, and everyone they come to is a dead end. Their client, Helena, is almost being forced out of her tenement. And they tell her, don't accept money from Fisk, stay, because now Fisk now owns that tenement. And later on, Helena is found stabbed to death. She's been robbed. And they're pretty sure Fisk had something to do with it. So Matt begins his quest to find who did this. And he's tracking down every person he can find on the street and just beating the tar out of him. And he eventually makes his way to this warehouse where he thinks he's going to meet Fisk. But instead, Nobu shows up.
So guys, the question I have about this scene is, did Matt or did he not kill Nobu?
Oh, yeah, he did.
I think so.
He did.
Because he's going to say he didn't.
Oh, he did.
How did he? I mean, did he plan to catch
It's
him on fire?
self-defense. I mean, he's a lawyer. He can get himself out of it.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was literally like slashed all over the place by these really awesome weapons that he had. And like knives on chains. and yeah, in that moment, he was able to set him on fire. And that it is in self-defense, but yes, Matt finally, he just killed his first person.
But like we said, self-defense. It wasn't like he wanted him to be dead.
It wasn't
was
murder.
Just, it's unfortunately the only way out. It's either him or me. And 99% of the time it's going to be him.
I feel like Matt could have been less responsible than he was, because when he showed up, he's like, I don't want to fight you. I came here to fight Fisk, but I guess I'll have to settle for you. So like he implies that he's going to fight Nobu to the death. And if he wants to have no responsibility in Nobu's death, that was probably a bad idea. Because maybe it's self-defense by the end, but he egged him on to start the fight. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered, but
he was going to have to fight him regardless.
Yeah. Nobu was sent there to kill him, so he was definitely.
Just like the red painting, we see both extremes of Fisk in this episode before it ends. Earlier, Matt found out that Fisk has someone he loves. But now, as we end the episode, we're going to see the first fight between Daredevil and Fisk. So we're going to see the rage. Guys, what are your reactions to when we finally see Fisk fighting? Like how terrifying and rageful is he?
It was cool.
He's cool
because
the dude's brutal.
Yeah, in comic books, he's almost twice the size of D'Onofrio. Can't even be. Anybody could be. If you saw the Spider-Man cartoon
he's
movie,
just a head with a.
Yeah. Into the Spider-Verse, sorry.
Yeah,
he's just this huge, monstrous, I didn't say that word right, but monstrous man, and so powerful. And, you can kind of see that here. And I think it actually shows more in the Hawkeye show, if anyone watched that. When he showed up there, he even seemed more strong, more powerful. So, but
there's something about seeing like him in a suit fighting. Like it's like the gentleman that could pummel you to death. I mean, that's something about that combination makes it kind of terrifying.
The thing is, too, when he was beating up Daredevil, he still kind of had that calm rage, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely.
But he was just doing his business. And once his jacket got slit, it's like, now I'm mad.
Super Nintendo boss mode when they turn red before they're about to die.
Exactly. Yep. It went a whole new level of like, oh, you just cut my jacket. That's where I crossed the line. Now you're really going to be paying for this. And I was totally expecting him to kill one of his henchmen when Daredevil jumped out the window.
I was too.
Because he got away. And I was just waiting on him to turn around and look at the no-name red shirt next to him and just end him right there.
Yeah.
But
because you know it's not going to be Wesley.
No, he wouldn't kill him. He could kill that other guy. And I thought that guy was going to take it. Like, you just let him go. And I'm really mad at now. So, Hulk smash. At the end of the episode, Foggy discovers that Matthew may be Daredevil. How is this going to play out? Find out when we cover episode 10 in the next video.